Good evening and welcome to the Navis Newscast. Today is Thursday, June 2nd, 2016. I'm Donis Wilkinson Keynes. The Premier's Ministry is inviting nominations for National Honours Awards. The general public is invited to submit nominations for the conferring of awards in the following categories: the Order of National Hero, the Star of Merit, and the Medal of Honour. Nomination forms may be obtained from the Premier's Ministry at Bath Hotel and may be completed and returned to the Ministry no later than Monday, July 25, 2016. Nomination forms may also be submitted directly to the Secretary of the National Honours Awards Committee at Government Headquarters in Bastille, St. Kitts. Water professionals are being offered an opportunity to earn a Master of Science or take short courses aimed at strengthening the capacity of professionals and decision makers in order to improve water management. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and UNESCO IHE Institute for Water Education have jointly launched a project titled Strengthening Small Island Developing States' Capacity in the Water Sector to Cope with the Effects of Climate Change. The beneficiaries of the project are water professionals who are responsible for key decision-making processes in the government. Candidates are required to have a bachelor degree in a field related to the program, a minimum of 3 years of practical or research experience since graduation, although all applications are, however, considered on their individual merit, and the English language requirements for UNESCO IHE's educational programs. Interested candidates are advised to register as soon as possible. The deadline for the 2016 Master of Science programs is July 1st, 2016. For short courses starting between September 5th and October 31st, 2016, the deadline is June 15th, 2016. For short courses starting between January 16th and March 24th, 2017, the deadline is October 12th, 2016. For short courses starting between April 3rd and July 21st, 2017, the deadline is January 3rd, 2017. Interested persons should contact the Premier's Ministry at 469-5521 or visit www.unesco-ihe.org/SIDS-fellowships for more specific information.
Thank you, Minister Brantley.
The heavy indebtedness of the sub-region was underscored last week at the 36th session of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, held in Mexico. In addressing the issue, St. Kitts and Nevis's Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Mark Brantley, said the indebtedness combined with debt servicing costs has created a situation of reduced fiscal space and major constraints on public spending.
I take this opportunity, therefore, on behalf of the Caribbean countries, to applaud the Debt for Climate Adaptation Swap Initiative, which will be endorsed by this Commission, and encourage, indeed urge ECLAC to move expeditiously to the next level to assist the countries of the sub-region in working out the technical details that respond to our respective debt profiles, while supporting the exploration of green, climate-resilient industries to stimulate the transformation of our economies. It is a bold and promising initiative, and we look forward to the support of the wider international community in its effective implementation.
Minister Brantley noted that Horizons 2030 correctly highlights as a theme for the region progressive structural change, which includes investment in areas for which long-term returns will be greatest, resulting in high-quality jobs. He pointed to crucial areas for investment, describing them as strategies that can propel the Caribbean toward structural change.
We need to invest in education and technology in order to build and maintain long-term technical capacity for innovation. We need, secondly, to stimulate economic growth through a more stable, resilient macroeconomic environment. Thirdly, we need to invest in social programs aimed at protecting and targeting the most vulnerable. Fourthly, we need to invest in institutions that embrace a wide range of stakeholders in policymaking. Fifthly, we must also invest in strengthening regional integration in the Caribbean and in engaging the wider region. And lastly, We must invest in strengthening statistical systems to ensure the most effective measurement and monitoring of progress in SDG implementation.
Minister Brantley, who currently serves as chairman of ECLAC's Caribbean Development and Cooperation Committee, called on members of the Commission to support the Caribbean's endeavor towards sustainable and inclusive growth and development. Still to come.
And it is geared towards giving young people an opportunity, or school leavers an opportunity, to be introduced to the world of work in a monitored setting.
We'll give you the details after this break.
It only takes a few minutes for rising water to become a flood. Are you ready? Prepare your family and community. Look for rapidly rising water. Act. Go to safety immediately. For more information, contact the Nevis Disaster Management Department.
Celebrating the old, showcasing the new. Culturama 42.
Welcome back. The Department of Youth and Sports will host the 13th edition of its Summer Job Attachment Program from July 11th to August 12th, 2016. Director of Youth Development, Zanella Claxton, outlines the guidelines for registration.
Registration begins on Monday, May 30th, 2016, and ends on the 8th of June, 2016. However, there is a special stipulation, and I want all parents, school leavers, and everyone who has a school leaver who might be interested in this program to hear me and understand this part very well. The registration opens on May 30th, closes on June 8th. However, we are only taking 60 application forms, and that means the first 60 young people to return their forms to the office will be considered for the program this year. So the first step is the application process. You submit your application forms and you're scheduled for an interview. The interviews at the department are panel interviews. The next step is the training workshops. We have training workshops for a week, 1 week, and we take them through as many components of the life of an employee as possible.
The training workshop is scheduled for June 20th to 24th. Claxton is encouraging persons to sign up and be a part of the 13th Annual Summer Job Attachment Program.
I would just like to take this opportunity to encourage all school leavers to come on board and apply to the 2016 edition of the Summer Job Attachment Program. We have a wonderful experience in store for you. It will be a life-changing one, very different from what you're accustomed to having at school or in the community. And it is tailored especially for you to make you the professionals that we know that you can be.
Director of Youth Development at the Department of Youth and Sports, Zanella Claxton.
The nature of my work is to work with Caribbean countries to be more responsive to the international human rights system. So St. Kitts and Nevis is subject to a number of different international human rights treaties as well as processes. And my job is to work with the government and the civil society to be more responsive to those processes and mechanisms.
Michelle Brathwaite is the Human Rights Officer in the United Nations Office of the Resident Coordinator for Barbados and the OECS. She was a facilitator of a May 30th to 31st workshop on human rights held at the Emergency Operations Center here on Nevis.
This region, we have a cultural tradition and history of respecting human rights. So I believe that the average citizen has an expectation, a certain expectation of what their human rights are and how they should be respected. To the extent that we then have a conversation around the extent of those rights and the scope of those rights, Everybody has a different opinion. But I don't think that we fall out of the parameters that the Caribbean region allows, which is a general respect for civil and political rights and economic, social, and cultural rights as well.
The UN's Universal Periodic Review process was one of the topics of discussion.
St. Kitts and Nevis just went through its second Universal Periodic Review, or UPR, last year. And so as a result of that process, St. Kitts and Nevis got a number of recommendations to address a number of different human rights concerns. And so tomorrow we're going to look at that Universal Periodic Review process, as well as the recommendations that St. Kitts and Nevis received during this last review, and what the participants think has been done and can be done to implement those recommendations.
Anselm Keynes and Joy Napier were two of the participants.
The human rights workshop that is being put on by the UN is a very good initiative. It's the first morning, and it was very well organized, very informative. We got a lot of details about the different treaties that St. Kitts and Nevis has signed in terms of our human rights record. We got a lot more clarity on the way that we should proceed in terms of human rights in the Federation. And I am pleased to see so many persons. I think there are close to 30 people from civil society, from government organizations, teachers, guidance counselors. So it is a wonderful representation.
When we think about human rights, we generally think that's just a process for international organizations and bodies such as the United Nations, not realizing that it has a very critical link with many of the institutions that we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis, our state institutions, our government bodies, civil society, because when we agree to certain things internationally, or we sign onto a particular treaty, for that treaty to really have effect, it's really up to many of the state corporations and the ministries and departments to really take it the full way. And it's a bit difficult for us to do that unless we're really aware and made abreast of what is happening at the international level. The Human Rights Workshop comes at a very important time when I believe that we've had a number of new and developing trends in the area of human rights. Of course, as you know, St. Kitts and Nevis has signed on to a number of treaties and international conventions. And sometimes the problem or the difficulty that we have is what we do and say internationally does not correspond with our actions domestically. And sometimes there is a bit of a lacuna in that respect. So the Human Rights Workshop that we've had here today is quite critical in trying to address that lacuna. I think that the session thus far has been quite informative and also innovative, and I must certainly commend the staff at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs led by Ms. Kebas for organizing such an important session here for the benefit of all our stakeholders and our civil servants here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's it for this evening's edition of the Nevis Newscast. On behalf of all of us here at the Department of Information, thank you for viewing. I'm Donis Wilkinson Keynes. Good night.